No worries. Okay, morning everyone. Thanks very much for giving us a bit of your time this morning. My name's Chris. I'm from a company called Cardale, and we help companies specialise and help them develop communication strategies, engagement plans, and new ways of talking and engaging with their people. Now, my background isn't health and safety. My background is actually for the therapy world. I spent a bit of time doing work with patients, and my background, because of that, I look at this health and safety stuff slightly differently. So today, I really want to take you on a sort of whistle stop tour of some of the thoughts and ideas that we've got at Cardale. Talk about how that can apply in today's world, especially with some of the new ways that we're having to live and operate at the minute, and the impact that that can sort of have on human beings. And maybe give you as well some tools and techniques you can take away and hopefully try locally with the workforce and with those that you're responsible for as managers, as influencers, we in KN Circet to try and help make that little bit of a difference and help us really strive as we move forward on this well-being journey that we're in within the business at the minute. So just now, looking at organisations, a lot of companies have, for a long time now, have been fascinated with human behaviour. There's been these behavioural models from industry that have been used for a long time now to try and help the workforce change their behaviours when they're out there on the front line. Now, those models have been essential for us to help move forwards in industry in the UK. If you look back into a bit of our history, we did go through a period, we at Cardale, we call it the decades of disaster, where people were getting injured regularly in the workplace. Some people were getting seriously injured, and some people were even dying on a regular basis. And to help us move past that, the government knew they had to bring in legislation, legislative models to try and help shift some sense of responsibility away from just it's a free-for-all to companies need to start taking care of people. And part of that is these behavioural models. If you look at how a lot of these behavioural models work, they work off of what we call the ABC model for human behaviour, where that stands for antecedents, behaviour, and consequences. So what that model sort of states is before anyone behaves in any way, something's got to happen first. That would be your antecedent. That's just like a posh word that psychologists use for something happens. It triggers off an event. But before you behave in any way, you'll weigh up consequences for yourself, both positive and negative. And whichever consequence you see is the strongest, you tend to has an impact on what choices you'll make for your behaviour, for yourself moving forward. Now, that's always been used as human beings. For me, I think psychologists have just sort of formalised something that's been used for we us since we were all kids, probably. Like you're probably sure you will have had experiences where parents and the likes have says to you, if you're good, you'll get this nice treat, but if you're bad, you're going to your room, right? So that's the behaviour consequence model. Now, in today's world, like I say, that has helped us move forward so far. But in today's world, there's these other aspects of human beings that companies like yours are starting to get interested in. And these are more sort of psychological subtleties that are going on, the interactions between human beings and some of the things that we let float by us that can actually have a major impact on us as we go through our day. Now, one of the areas that I want to share with you that helps us understand that is the role belief actually plays on behaviour, because we all hold beliefs in life, and whatever you believe has an impact on your expectations of your life. Whatever you expect will impact your emotions, your emotional state, how you feel, and how you feel will also have an impact on your behaviour. So looking at this sort of model takes us a step beyond the simplistic ABC basis that we've been using for a long time in industry. Now, this model, this belief sort of cycle is everywhere in life. Now, let me give you a few examples of how this works for us. So some of us might wake up every day with a belief that our glass is half empty. So we'll expect instantly to have a pretty bad day because we're expecting a bad day emotionally. We feel pretty demotivated and low on the inside. So outside, we'll sort of show that through our behaviour. You know, people might smile and say good morning at us. We're probably going to grunt at them in return. And that's only if we even have the energy for that. But some people wake up in the same day, in the same world, and their beliefs about themselves and the world around them slightly differently. They might believe their glass is half full, so they expect to have a brilliant day because they're expecting a brilliant day. Emotionally, they feel more enthusiastic, positive, and confident in the inside. So behaviourally, you can see differences in these people. They tend to smile more. They tend to have more of a spring in their step. Nothing seems to be too much of a hassle for them. Bounce through their day, and they are the type that will say good morning to you. But what we've seen in psychological models, when you start getting groups of people together, when it comes to human behaviour, we start noticing people that act in certain ways are attracted to people that also act like that. So it's almost like we say like likes like. So what you'll find in different settings with groups is there's groups of people that all believe and act in similar ways, like to gather together, because that reinforces the belief to themselves and each other that that's right, that's the way it is. This is why like places like sporting grounds are fascinating to watch. You know, you end up with groups of people with a common belief that their team's the best, gather in sporting grounds. When we're allowed to do that on a weekly basis, we have that belief their team's the best, they're going to win, so they expect that win, which gives them an emotional high on the inside. And that's when you see normal people having completely different behaviours inside a sporting arena than you would see outside. You know, you have these normally quiet people who will be getting involved with singing songs. They'll be shouting abuse at players. They'll be shouting things at referees. They'll also probably be standing there shouting advice to athletes while they're stood there drinking Bovril and eating a pie. You know, so there's all these different changes that can happen on the outside for us that's driven from what we believe on the inside. And in fact, another great example that shows this and how it can impact on other people as well is almost like the role of self-fulfilling prophecies, where we can actually convince ourselves a situation's going to arise because of a belief that we hold. And we sometimes don't even know why they're there. Like, how many times have you left work one night or been heading home from somewhere and you don't know why? You just believe in your mind that when you get home, your other half is going to be in a horrible, stinking mood, you know? So that would probably lead you to expect an argument to break out when you get home. Now you've got that expectation of an argument. Emotionally, you start preparing yourself on the inside for that argument. You know, you'll probably start planning it out. See, if they say this, I'm going to say that. And that starts feeding your anxieties on the inside. So when you do get home, your behaviour's slightly different from normal, meaning you're not as warm and cuddly as you normally are. You'll probably find yourself standing back in the corner with the arms folded, looking a bit more standoffish than you normally are. And then when your partner sees that change in your regular behaviour, they'll ask you the age-old question, what's wrong with you? And instantly, as soon as you respond to that with the two-word answer that everybody goes to, which is normally nothing, why, that's when the shouting begins. And as soon as the shouting starts, you're saying to yourself, I knew that was going to happen. And you reaffirm that belief because of your behaviour. But the interesting bit in that for me is the impact that your behaviour has had on your other half there. Because so it's almost as if your behaviour can lead into other people's beliefs. It's like there's a bridge between you and the people around you. So for us as leaders, as influencers, that's something that might be worth our time to consider. Is a person we in KN just now, it's been great for a while maybe to look at what other people are doing behaviourally at the front line and try to help make changes, help people build better habits for themselves for health and safety, which we've been doing for a while. But maybe the next step is maybe shifting that focus a little bit, not just to the front line, but maybe to start looking at yourself internally and look at what you're displaying to others, because that behavioural output that you're demonstrating will be a bridge into the workforce's beliefs. So it's almost as if you here are the leader, you've got your belief, expectations, emotions and behaviours, and what people see, hear and feel from you through your behaviour. And when I'm talking about behaviour, all I really mean by that is the things that we say and do. And when we talk about the things that we say and do, it's not just about the words that we use. Sometimes it's also about the tone that we're using, the body language we're displaying. These can have great clues, give us great clues as to what's going on with other people. Excuse me. So as a leader, it'd be brilliant for you to maybe reflect on that for a little moment and think about, what am I doing, and what impact could that have on those that I'm responsible for? Because if we're truly talking about making change, it is far easier for an individual to make a change for the self, to see what impact that has on others, rather than try to force continual behavioural changes on groups. Okay, because at the end of the day, there's some great statements that we've all used for a long time, that's common in our dialect in the UK. Like one of my favourite ones is, "I'll believe it when I see it." So that sort of suggests to us that people are looking for evidence that things are actually truly changing, not that things are just getting imposed on them. Because the saying has never been, "I'll believe it when somebody briefs me in a meeting" before. Okay, so we've got to understand that these bridges are going to be very, very important for us as leaders as we move on. Now, when you look at these relationship bridges between people, I like to look at them just like any sort of actual bridge in real life. You know, you've got some bridges out there that have been constructed that are solid, they're strong, and they can support quite a bit of weight and pressure. But there's others that have been left out there, you know, they've not been maintained properly, and they've started to display weaknesses. You know, some of them might need some major renovation, and some might need to be completely demolished and rebuilt. And that's just like relationships in everyday life, because there will be people in your personal life that, if you were to step back and look at your relationship more like a bridge rather than just a person-to-person interaction, we can maybe start looking at what this might mean for us a little bit. I mean, if we even think back to school for a moment, think back to school and think back to being in the classroom. There would have been certain teachers that you had in your life that you felt you had a great, strong relationship with. Okay, and these are the type of teachers that you would have felt would have been able to support you. They would have helped you if you had any questions you wanted to ask. They would have been there for you. And you probably felt, going back to the bridge analogy, if that was a bridge that you had to cross, you probably have confidence in the strength of that bridge. You wouldn't have to worry about, am I going to fall off this thing? Am I going to get hurt on this? You know, you can stride across that bridge with confidence, knowing that there's strength there, and you're going to get that support. But there'll be other teachers that you might have had that you maybe didn't have that same confidence in your relationship, that confidence in the strength of the bridge that there was between you and them. And these are the sort of teachers that if you were stuck with something, you had an issue, you wanted to ask a question about something or challenge something, you're less likely to stick your hand up, because that bridge isn't strong. It doesn't feel as if you're going to get fully supported, and you may even take a tumble and fall. So we're very, very aware of the strength of these bridges in relationships. And as a manager, as a leader, if you truly want to have influence over other people and try to help lead them to a good, strong, safe place, and that safe place is that no matter what, we're all getting home safe every single night, one of the key essential things for you to consider is the strength of those bridges. Now, one of the things that I'm going to cover with you as we move on is some of these tools that I want to share with you will hopefully help us be able to identify the strength of these bridges, be able to try and look for ways where we can make local improvements, and maybe share with you some ideas on what you can do to try and shake things up a little bit to see if that makes a difference for you. Okay, now another thing, another thing for leaders to be very aware of, especially in terms of relationships and the bridges and the responsibilities that you folks have got, is the role that reciprocity can actually have when it comes to relationships between people. Now, reciprocity is basically a fancy word that psychologists like to use to describe payback effectively. Now, payback is something that we all like to do. It's got different ways that we do it as well. It's not just always negative. We do reciprocal payback with people for positive things as well. Like if somebody gives you a gift, you feel it's an instinct almost that you want to pay that back. You want to give them something in return. You know, this is why a lot of, before we really relied so heavily on money, there was always a lot of barter and trade, and it was all about trying to find a level of fairness between people, because that payback is seen as essential for relationships to thrive for people. Now, people also do this for negative things as well, though. So as a leader, it is very important for us to be aware of the role that reciprocity has. Now, the thing is with this reciprocal payback stuff that goes on between people is not everybody likes to give you it instantly. You know, some people like to sit back and wait for the ideal moment to pay things back. And I've seen examples of that in my career as I've travelled about in different industry sectors, you know, where things can be going going great for a while. And then one day, all of a sudden, it's almost as if there's a mutiny and nobody wants to play the game anymore. And it's people are stepping back, just not getting involved with any engagement. It completely drops off. And the reason for that is when you look into it quite regularly, is something's happened in the past, and that's the payback starting to play out. So it's a bit like that old saying, sometimes with revenge, it's a bit like dessert is best served cold. Okay, that's the way that some people like to play it. But when those situations arise, that sometimes leaves leaders scratching their head, thinking, what's happened here? Why did this happen? Now, let me give you a visual sort of representation of what the sort of payback stuff, this reciprocity stuff, sort of feels like for me. Now, I like to think of it almost as if we've all got these like imaginary scales of justice sitting on top of our heads, right? Where you control one side and the rest of the world controls the other. And if at any point you feel as if your scales are unbalanced by an external force, you'll do what you can with your side to try and bring balance back into your world. And you can see all sorts of simple examples of that. So let's say something simple happens, like maybe one of us as a leader is visiting a job, and we have a conversation with somebody, never went quite the way that we intended it to, and we never addressed it at the time. That member of the workforce might cause their scales to become imbalanced as their inner dialogue, the way they talk to themselves, starts having conversations with them like this. How dare they speak to me like that? I didn't deserve that. That wasn't the way that should have been. Blah, 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 blah. So what they like to do, so they might get to a point where they'll say to themselves stuff like this: do you know what? I'm going to work slower for the next month. That will show them. And justice is restored to their world, or a sense of it at least. Because for human beings, justice is something that we've been fascinated with since the beginning of our existence. This is why we've got court systems, you know. So justice is essential for us all as human beings to feel as if we're getting things acknowledged, we're getting things addressed, and we can move on. So this reciprocity stuff is actually very, very important for us to consider. But like I says, it's not just always negative. Once you understand how reciprocity works, you can actually use this for yourself as a recruitment tool as well. Now, reciprocity, let me show you how this works in positive ways in real life. Would be situations like this, how it works positively. Now, it's coming up to Christmas time soon, so many of us will probably be doing the slog around the shops soon, get the Christmas gifts in, and it's a common conversation to hear couples have on a yearly basis, things like this. I wish such and such would stop buying our kids gifts, because that means we don't need to buy theirs. Now, it's that gift swapping, that's where the reciprocity comes from, okay? That feeling of we need to do this, of giving that gift back, that payback going on. Now, there's been studies done into this to see how this works, and it's simple things that can cause reciprocity to happen. Like in restaurants, there's been studies done in to figure out how tipping can be increased for waiting staff. And it's simple things like there was I can't remember the exact figures off the top of my head, but there was a study done in the US, well worth a look. If you want to have a look at this yourself, and all they were really doing was giving mints out at the table as they were giving people their bill, and they found, depending on how they gave the mints out to the guests at the restaurant, determined how big the tip tended to be on average. So what they found is if you just put the bill down on the table and walked away, you get sometimes a tip, sometimes not, effectively. Then they found if you gave enough mints on the plate with a bill for each person, the rate of tips went up quite a bit. But they found the best way of getting tips for waiting staff was actually to put the bill down with some mints on it, on the table, and walk away, but take a couple of paces, then turn back round to the table, walk up to the diners and say this: do you know what? I've really enjoyed having you people in here tonight. You've been a great bit of company and helped my shift fly in. For you nice people, here's some extra mints. And for those that were doing that, they found their tips went through their roof. And that wasn't just about the mints there. That was also about the emotional reciprocity, the emotional payback that they were getting from that transference that was going on there. So there's this emotional element for reciprocity that goes on for us as well. So as leaders, as influencers, as managers, that's something we might want to consider if we're wanting to recruit people to come on this well-being journey with us. Because what I mean by this, where we've got the opportunity to go with this, is in a lot of places, historically, a lot of people don't feel positive just now about health and safety. And a lot of that can be tied back to the way it's historically been represented to people, where we connect it lots to negativity. It's always sort of bad feeling, safety. You know, that's the sort of a feeling that we've got with it. And if it's us as leaders, as managers, that's up there at the safety meetings, briefs, giving out the information, and there's this feeling of negativity connected to it, that negativity could also be connected to us. We might get eventually sort of seen as the bearers of bad news all the time if that's the way that we are presenting health and safety. Now, I'm not saying that the way that we've done it for a long time has been wrong. It's what we've known. It's the way it is. But by understanding some of these further subtleties and maybe looking for ways to adapt, change, and maybe even enhance your approach, that could be the thing that could start redressing some of that, because it's really effectively an emotional habit that people have formed with their emotional feelings with health and safety, because, as I say, it's repeatedly been connected with negativity. Lots of companies, when they talk about health and safety, it's always been, here's all the bad statistics. Here's what injuries we've continually had over the last period. Here's some pictures of some bad things that's went wrong. And some companies also like to bring in like living witnesses to tell their story about this bad thing happened to me, and here's how it's completely changed my life. So there's not really been this positive connection emotionally with health and safety. But maybe now moving forward, we could see that as something that we could maybe start to look at, because I'm sure, see, when you look at statistics, there's many ways you can tell the stories hidden within statistics. It's maybe just about imagination and creativity now. Like what we recently actually helped one client of ours reframe the way they were presenting statistics, or intending to present statistics to their people, just as an experiment to see if they could change the level of engagement, and they found it actually worked. So they tried this with two different groups. They presented statistics traditionally, and then they got a second group in presented it this new way, and they were looking at the difference in feedback, but also the engagement within the room at the time. And it was as simple as this. The statistic was over a year, they managed to reduce life-saving injuries, life-changing injuries by 11. So 1 year they had 14, and then they brought that down to 3 over a period of a year. Now the first group, they stood up, they went, look, last year we had 14, look, this year we're still having 3 life-changing injuries. This is unacceptable. We cannot accept people going home in this state. This is what we're going to do, and started pointing out negatives, bad things that have led to those 3, and only focused in on the 3 bad things. The second group, though, we brought them in, and we presented the information differently to them. We actually stood up with them and says, look, I'd like to stand up here today and thank every member of the team that's in the room with us right now. The reason I'm saying this is because over the past year, we've actually managed to reduce our life-changing injuries by 11. Now, that's no mean feat. Now, I'm not just looking at that as a number on a board here behind me. I'm actually looking at that as 11 families. That's 11 families we've all contributed to saving this year. And the thing is how statistics work, I can't tell you who those families are. It could be your family, it could be your family, it could even have been my family that's been saved here. All that pain and all that suffering. So I'd like to thank everyone for every effort they put in to help us achieve that. But we've still got a wee bit of work to do. So I'm here to ask for your help again. Look, we've got this only 3. If we're able to get 11 saved last year, surely we can do 3 this year. Are you up for it? And we used it as a recruitment piece rather than as a negative. And the engagement in that room was amazing. Now, in today's world especially, with all the pandemic stuff that's going on and the way that we're all living, this could be essential for us as a business just now to really keep our people on the game. Because one of the other things that we're starting to notice is starting to seep into businesses is a thing called despondency. And that's basically where your head's dropping and you just don't feel engaged. A lot of people feel overwhelmed just now with rules, regulations, things changing, things that they used to value and see as normal and just as a bit of light relief. It's something that sometimes things now that they're getting told you're not allowed to do that because it's dangerous. So a lot of people are confused just now and a lot of heads are starting to drop. But think about our people, no different to a sports team, right? So forget about safety and pandemics for a minute. Let's just look at engagement and performance. And if anyone in here that's tuned into this just now has ever supported a sports team and despondency's kicked in and the heads drop, you know what that can do to these people. They just don't feel the same way that they normally would, and in return, they don't perform the way that they would hope for, even though they want to win, even though they want to succeed. When despondency kicks in, that can have a major impact on them. But that's not just for the teams to be aware of. That's also for you as a manager, as a leader within our business. You need to look out for this in yourself. Because if you're starting to notice despondency kicking in on yourself, remember that beep to beep model, your behaviours, that will be demonstrated throughout your behaviours and your actions, the way you talk, your words, your tone, your body language, and that's going to have a major impact on what your teams believe about you and believe about what they can all achieve together with you. So we need to watch out for this for ourselves as well. And when you notice it, try and catch yourself, give yourself a little lift and try to feed that back into your teams. But we need to watch out for this because it is starting to really seep in for people. A lot of businesses are seeing lots of small things starting to reoccur in terms of health and safety incidents that they thought they had knocked out the park. And it's for us, we think a lot of it could be down to despondency. Okay. Now, I did say just before we finish off that I was wanting to share with you some practical things, some tools that as a leader you can take out and you can start looking at how can we use some of this to maybe rebuild or reinforce or enhance some of the bridges, relationship bridges that we've got just now. How can I look at some of my personal actions and behaviours, and how can I maybe try and look for improvement opportunities to make successes for the future for yourself and for your people. Now, very simple things that we like to use. Like the first exercise we like to use, and this can be applied to anything that you're doing within your business sector, is we call it the percentage value exercise. Now, what the percentage value exercise really is basically that. Instead of just looking at what we're doing, we like to look at what value we're getting for what we're doing. So let's take, for instance, a safety meeting, for example. It's common when guys like myself visit businesses, we'll sit in many meetings, and it's almost as if a lot of these meetings have got like a sort of flow that they've got to follow, and a lot of people have sort of fallen into the habit of just going through the motions almost with it. And when you look at that model, that sort of application of it, it sometimes doesn't really feel as if people are getting the best value out of it. So one of the things I like to do is, like, take, let's say, safety meeting, for example, is I like to sit down with people that are involved with that, the people that are receiving the information, but also the people that are involved with presenting it. And I like to sit down and ask them things like, right, so see just now, what would, for you folks, what would the best safety meeting in the world look like for you? And I'd like to get a big picture of what that would look and feel like. And I normally note all this down on a flip chart or a big bit of paper. And I get all sorts of detail from them. I like to ask them questions like, how long would it last? What are the key things that would need to be covered? How would that be presented? Would it be light-hearted? Does it need to be serious? How many statistics would we have in there, or would we not have any at all? What sort of frame do you want this presented in? Do you want this to talk about the business lots? Or do you want to talk about the local area and what this maybe means in this area more? And get a big picture of what brilliant looks like for these people. Then I'd ask them to give us a picture of the opposite, and I'd note this in a different bit of paper or a different flip chart. And what would the worst in the world look like for you, and get a big picture of what the worst case scenario would be for these people. How long would it last? Statistics, who's presenting it, what's the free, all this stuff, grab that. And then I like to place these two bits of paper either on a wall, either sides of a room, or on two flip charts with a bit of space between them. And then I ask the people in the room with me, is imagine this as a scale then. From what you say is brilliant to what you say is horrific, whereabouts do you feel we are here right now on that scale in terms of our way we conduct our safety meetings? And I normally just walk right up and down between the two bits of paper, the two flip charts, and when the people in the room feel we're at that point where they feel that represents where they're at, again, it will shout stop at me. Okay. And once they've shouted stop, that's exactly where I say. So I say, so this is where we are just now. And if this is where we are at, see if we were to look at the value that we are getting out of this for a group, how would we score that? Say like 100% was amazing. Where are we here just now? Are we getting 100% value out of this way that we're doing it? Is it 60%? Is it 50, 40, 30? And get them to give that a score. And then I ask them, what changes could we make locally here over the period of the next week or two that maybe take us a pace further along the scale, a step closer to what we think brilliant is? And once we can start to identify those little changes, that gives us all little goals that we can locally start moving towards. It'll give you, as the leader, goals that you can maybe achieve for yourself. Here's how I need to make some changes. Here's how I can need to sort of frame up the way that I'm engaging with my people, because it's no longer an industry just about engagement. It should really be about engagement efficiency, because some companies have got lots of engagement. There's lots of messages get sent out, lots of phone calls, meetings, briefings like this. But the question is how efficient are they? And are we really getting the value back from them? And what some of you might even come to realise is, see, as a leader, sometimes leaders aren't always doing everything for the people, right? Sometimes you might find it might be better to recruit others to help you with certain things. Like when we've done these percentage value exercises in some businesses, some leaders have actually realised they need to actually hand over the way that meetings are done to other people, because it's all about getting the buy-in. and getting the value, because not everybody is a natural presenter. Not everybody's comfortable presenting at meetings, and quite often this isn't anything to do with just not wanting to do it. Sometimes it's down to history and things that have happened in the past, bad experiences, and people are carrying all that with them. So it's about getting the value. It's not just about going through the motions. It's not about ticking the boxes. It's about getting something that's going to work for you and for your people. Now, those exercises with the flip charts and the percentage, you can do that with anything. I just use safety meetings as a very quick example, but that can be applied to anything that you're doing within your business. It can be done with meetings, it can be done with site tours, you name it, anything it can be applied to. It's just about getting the imagination out there. So I think I've pretty much covered the time. I've given you some practical tools. We've looked at like the belief cycle, the bridges. We've talked a bit about payback and reciprocity, and how maybe moving forward, it's not just about looking at the front line's behaviour now. Maybe it's about looking at us and thinking about what differences can we inject in now to see what differences in mindset we can get back from the front line. So thanks very much for your time. Hope that's been all right for you. Have a great day. All the best. Take care.